Morning once again.
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to. Oops, my computer started buzzing. I'll turn it off. Welcome to another episode of Awaking Happiness, where we share our stories, our insights on our own pursuit of happiness. And I hope you find these videos useful, our podcast episodes. If you haven't watched anything else before, welcome to the channel. And if you find it useful and informative, please do consider subscribing and maybe sharing this video or any other ones with your
Subscribe,
friends.
click on the
So,
alarm bell so you get notified as soon as we put another one up.
yeah, we do these daily, so do that. So today's topic is about demystifying one of the main subject topics these days. It's Bitcoin. We decided to do a conversation on this because Chris knows a lot about Bitcoin. And because we have noticed that lots of people have different views, different opinions, different some of it are valid. Some of those opinions that people share come from a misunderstanding or somehow confusion. So
Hearsay or
we
conjecture.
yeah, so so this is meant to have a little more clarity on the subject of what Bitcoin is, and is it just another money scam, Chris?
Well, I think let's just clear the misconceptions. Why is there so much conjecture about Bitcoin? Well, clearly it's new. It's not been around any longer than 2010. So in financial terms, it's fairly new. And when the trouble is that when something comes on the scene and you get told about something by somebody else, and it's like, oh, I've been told this is really good, I'm going to put some money into it, and it normally ends in tears. It normally ends in tears. Normally it's some kind of like scam, and people lose money, and it might not be a huge amount of money. It might be £200 or £300. It might be more than that, but people are wary, very wary of new things because they've got burned. People are wary because they got burned, and if it's too sounds too good to be true, it often is. And I think uh, you know when we look at what is Bitcoin, it essentially there's lots of different cryptocurrencies, many thousands of them, all right? And Bitcoin was the first, and it's kind of out on its own a little bit as the main grandfather of cryptocurrency, which is the generic term for all these things. And it's kind of got a use case of gold. So and that's really because it's valuable and there's not a lot of it. So if Picasso, for example, had created a million paintings, you'd be able to buy them on every street corner, and there'd be 10 a penny. Like it wouldn't be worth very much. The reason why gold is valuable is because it's quite difficult to extract, very difficult to locate, and costs huge amounts of money to get out of the ground. And
Well,
you
it's
have to
got
use,
also certain properties that make it to be so-called precious metal. So, but the
yeah,
same with Bitcoin, it has certain properties which we will mention, I suppose, yeah,
yeah,
later
yeah.
on.
I'm going to come on to that. But the thing
Yeah.
is, with gold, you can't. Not anyone can just go get some. Do you know what I mean? I mean, those days of the gold diggers in America are long since past. And I just learned the other day one of the ways you have to use, or I think it's like used in most cases of gold extraction. You need to use cyanide. Well, of course, cyanide is a poison, And in China, where they mine gold, they just throw the cyanide in the rivers afterwards. So a lot of the rivers are actually poisonous. Whereas in other countries where they've been mining gold for ages and ages, and it's kind of an industry which has been, if you like, monitored and improved, they have to account for every gram of cyanide in and every gram of that cyanide coming out. It's like you can't leave any of it to chance. It's all the cyanide that goes in is used and processed, and then it has to be monitored on the way out. But consequently, gold is very difficult to extract, and it costs loads of money and everything else. So, Bitcoin is likened to gold in that it's very difficult to mine because they have a concept in Bitcoin of mining, but it's not like digging holes in the ground because it doesn't exist in physical terms, but people have to solve complex algorithms which require massive computers to do so. And as a reward for solving the algorithm and completing the recording of a new block with a transaction in, they are eligible for Bitcoin compensation to get some Bitcoin. It's a very expensive process, uses loads of energy. So you find that these types of organizations are where they can get access to fairly low cost energy, such as, I don't know, waterfalls or dams or places where they don't have to pay to burn coal to get to mine Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean? So that's the well, and there's a lot of controversy out there about how expensive it is in terms of fuel and energy costs to mine Bitcoin. But it's a real storm in a teacup, because in reality, per $1 trillion, if you like, of Bitcoin mining, it equates way more cost effective and energy efficient than running the banking system. The banking system is a disaster when it comes to how much money it costs. So, people basically chastise Bitcoin for this, for energy, are just looking at one element of it and going, oh, look, it's loads of fuel. Whereas when you take it into a broader perspective of it as an industry, it's way more efficient than that. And there's lots of things out there that we ought to be complaining about rather than Bitcoin. So that's the first thing out of the way. It's really not a problem, and as a way forward, it's way better than a lot of things. Another misconception, so therefore Bitcoin difficult to mine, and there's a limited number of it, 21 million Bitcoin only, right? And about 19 million or so currently mined, and the mining goes on until next century, because every 4 years the mining rewards get halved. Consequently, only half as many Bitcoin get mined. So the next halving, I don't know whether it's about 12 Bitcoin every 10 minutes or something at the moment can be mined, but next year that goes to 6. So as you progress through time, less Bitcoin gets mined until, I don't know when it's like 2110 or something, or 2120, there are no more Bitcoin available. That's it. They're all mined, finished. Right?
They are available, but they are not produced anymore.
They're not produced. No more new ones. So what we've got is what we've got. The other problem with Bitcoin is that, well, not problem, but the other reason for the scarcity is that the difference between gold and bank deposits is that you're looking after your Bitcoin. That means if you lose it, you lose it. Now, if you've got one Bitcoin in a wallet, It could be there's different types of wallets, which I won't go into just now, but there are different types. But if you've got your Bitcoin in a wallet and you lose the password, and there's different types of passwords as well, by the way, but you lose the access to it, that's it, it's gone. It's gone. So that's a huge amount of responsibility because you're in charge of it. Consequently, because Bitcoin's been, it's been proving itself over the last 12 years, it's been gradually gathering pace and getting acceptance as not a scam or a Ponzi scheme, and more on that later. Basically, it's increased in value, and it's so when somebody was basically like in the early days, I heard stories of people sending someone 10,000 Bitcoin just to prove that you could send this money backwards and forwards. They didn't these coins backwards and forwards. They didn't ask for them back. They just said, "Look, see, you can send them. Look, I just sent you 10,000 to your wallet. Yeah. So have you got it? Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. See, it works. Well, with 10,000 Bitcoin times the current price of 20,000, there's a lot of money. Right. Now that because in those days it was like I don't know 10 cents or 5 cents, like hardly any value. Today's current price, and it's gone on a little bit of a run just over the last few days. The current price today is $20,500, right? So you can see the value of these coins has gone up. Now, what's happened is that people who had these Bitcoin in the early days and they were worth a few cents, they didn't really look after them.
And some of them lost their keys.
Some of them
lost
their keys. Some of them threw away the laptop that the keys were on, and now are trying to get councils to turn over their rubbish tips so they can find the disk that's in the computer that's in the rubbish tip. Good luck with that one. But what you can, but yeah, if Bitcoin was £1 million, $1 million of Bitcoin, and you had 1,000 of them, that's a billion. That's worth digging over your rubbish.
You're gonna dig up a lot of rubbish to find this.
So basically, what's happened is that the value of this thing has changed. Now, I'll come on to you have to remind me but I'll come on to why that's important later on and how the value is going up, because a lot of people will also throw at this session and say, yeah, but it's all gone down, hasn't it? It's all gone down because Bitcoin at its height, this is like last year, 69,000, nearly $70,000 a coin. There is no physical coins, by the way, but that's just what how they're labelled. And it went down to the lowest was 15,400. So you can see that's a huge reduction and very volatile. Okay, it's very volatile in the circumstances. So it's like, well, if it can go down like that, surely it could go further, but and it could, anything's possible. But it seems to have settled at that, and that was the low as it looked like. And now it's just had a little bit of a run. It might be it had a run, but it's going to go back again. Who knows? Nobody knows. If someone tells you all the price is going up, you have to. No one knows actually what's going to happen. There's just the probabilities of certain things happening are greater than other things. So that's all you can really do, and you have to just take your pick. But basically it went down a lot, but it's done it before. Look, this is not it's just the numbers bigger. Like in the early days, it went from like $20 to $1,000. And then it went back down to $300. And then it went up to $3,000. And then it went back to $500. And then it went up to $20,000. And then went back to $3,000. And this time it's gone up to $69,000, and it's gone back to $15,000. So you
So
can
it's like
see,
a up
yeah,
and a little down, and then up
yeah,
again and a little down. But
that's
it's
right.
never going down,
It
down.
doesn't seem to go down as far as it was the time before. And the high on the last one was 20,000. And they thought, the last bull run, as they called it, when it went up, was 20,000. And they thought it would never go below the 20,000. It went down to 15. So it did go below the high. But now it's creeping back up above it. Now, coupled with this discussion about Bitcoin, of course, you have to look at the greater monetary scene that's out there.
Mm.
And when you look at the money supply that's out there, we've got inflation. And what does inflation do? Inflation devalues your money. So if it's 10% inflation, you could start off with £100, and at the end of $100, and at the end of the year, you've got still $100, but it'll only buy you $90 worth of goods compared to what the
Which,
start.
yeah, which I think you are heading into this direction. So go on.
So yeah, so it's you're losing money. Like, let's say you get 4% interest and it's 10% inflation, you're losing 6% of your money holding it in the bank. Right now, if you scale that up to the big hedge funds that are looking after all the money that people are putting into their pensions, and hedge funds that are trying to gauge how they can minimize their losses if things go horribly Pete Tong, then what they've got at the moment is they've got equities. Yeah, there's basically a hierarchy of where you put your money, right? If you want to go safe, you buy bonds, right? And bonds are government, basically, or treasuries or gilts in the UK. They're basically government money, so they're pretty safe, right? Unless the government goes bankrupt. Not beyond the realms of possibility right now. So you've got bonds, right? And so what happens is when the government wants money, they sell what? They basically they produce bonds, and and they get money because people buy them, and they get that money, and they can then go off and spend that. And when they want to reduce the amount of money out there, they buy the bonds back, right? And that takes the money out of the market, and they just dissolve it because they don't have money. So basically, they can put money in and take money out of the system using bonds, right? So it's good. It's like money, right? Because it's coming from the government or the Federal Reserve or wherever. So basically, it's pretty safe. And then the next thing you can do is you can put money into stocks and shares. Like like paper assets. And that's been pretty good. Like, these things have gone through the moon over the last 10, 20 years as basically money expansion, i.e. putting money into the economy without actually economic activity. Just putting money in has inflated the amount of money that's out there. And what have people done with this? They've gone and bought houses, they've gone and bought stocks and shares, and basically those things have gone up in value, but it's not real value, it's a bubble. Now we're in a very interesting situation, and then of course you can buy gold and silver, but gold and silver has got a challenge because you've got physical gold and silver, real stuff you can hold in your hand, and then you've got paper gold and silver. You might say, what's paper gold and silver, for heaven's sake? Well, it's basically a derivative of gold and silver, which basically people can buy and sell on the stock exchange. The trouble is it doesn't really bear any relevance to the price of the physical silver and gold. So whereas you might have what they call a spot price on the stock market of silver of $23, you try and buy an ounce of silver for $23. Good luck with that. You're probably going to pay upwards of 30. So there's this $6 or $7 discrepancy between paper and real silver. They are supposed to be able to exchange the paper silver for real silver, paper gold for real gold, but they're running out of that. Right. But if I had loads of money and I was able to do that, I'd be buying loads of silver and loads of gold because I can get it for that cheap old price and I can take delivery of it, right? But not normal, regular people like you and me can't do that. Okay, so there's those different options of where people who've got loads of money, trillions of dollars of money, can basically put it in a safe place. So when they go back and ask for it, they can A, get it, and B, it hasn't lost too much money. You know, like it's still pretty much, or maybe some interest as well if you're really lucky. But if the interest level is lower than the inflation, it doesn't make any difference anyway, right? So there are your choices. And then you've got Bitcoin. Right now, none of these hedge funds have really taken and made an adoption of this, right? But the thing is, at $15/$20, when your options are looking pretty really manky, you could start to think to yourself, well, Bitcoin's been around 12 years. It's kind of proved itself, and it's now worth 20K. It's the current market for Bitcoin is about 800 billion, right? All of those 21 million, which aren't 21 million, there's less than 21 million, but all of them together equates to a market value where money's been put in of the magnitude of about 800 billion, maybe a bit less, 750 billion. The money that's floating about out there in all these different debt systems and debt instruments is somewhere in the region of 300 to 400 trillion.
Trillion with a T.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
You can't even comprehend the size of this number.
The total amount of money that's invested in the gold that's in the market is 10 trillion. And Bitcoin's 800 billion. The scarcity and the and how you can acquire it and basically it's easy, it's simple, it can be done on a phone, etc. There's a few more instruments needed to be created to make it totally viable in terms of hedge funds. I'm not talking about you and I, we can do it, but hedge funds, it's got to be allocated to a person, it needs to be allocated to something, a thing which owns the Bitcoin, as it were. But they're working on it. El Salvador's working on a bond, a Bitcoin bond at the moment. I think it's been released and announced, so you can actually invest in a bond which is tied to Bitcoin. So they've actually done it there. But it's like a small country. If some big country was to do it, that would be significant, very, very significant. So you can see if all of these people managing their 300, 400 trillion were just to put 1% into Bitcoin, that would be 3 or 4 trillion, which would 4x the market, 4 or 5x the market, which means it wouldn't be 20K, it'd be 100K.
And I think that because they are running out of options, this is going to be the next step. And when this happens, then the price of Bitcoin will go through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, it's like gold and silver. If the global monetary reserve currency, the dollar, did collapse, or an alternative global currency linked to commodities like gold, silver, and rice and wheat and oil was to emerge, which is highly probable, by the way, because there's all sorts of shenanigans going on in the market at the moment. Then the price of gold and silver will go through the roof because it would now be seen as money, back into money, real money. Like if you've got gold and silver coins, you are holding real money, like proper money, none of this paper nonsense. proper money that's been money for 5,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's still money. And in fact, 2 years ago, the International Bank of Settlements made gold a tier one monetary asset again, which it wasn't for many, many years. And that means it's a tier one monetary asset, the same as a dollar. So a dollar's money, and now gold is money again. But if gold's money, silver's money. So at the end of the day, those two things go hand in hand. But there's a limited supply of physical gold and silver, and until the derivative sorts itself out and becomes the same as gold and silver physical, then no one trusts that nonsense because it's just paper again, right? It's just a trading mechanism labeled gold and silver with some, some small amount of relationship with real gold and silver, but being used by big banks to suppress the price of gold and silver because they don't want it to get out of hand. And if it does get out of hand, they want to get their hands on it before it gets out of hand.
Before that, yeah.
Which is why they're suppressing the price all the time. They may be running out a road to kick the can down, though, on that case. So it's an interesting situation. But Bitcoin, like you can see the attraction. Just somebody needs to decide, and there are countries all over the world now, third world countries, who don't want to be tied into the dollar, starting to consider Bitcoin as a legal currency for the simple reason that it cuts the tie to being absolutely linked to America and the dollar. And basically what America's doing is exporting inflation. So with Bitcoin, people can cut that off immediately. We've got Bitcoin, and we're not now under the control of the International Monetary Fund giving us money with huge debt repayments and interest. They can just start to cut the links there. So you can see that the potential for Bitcoin is huge because it's innovative and new. The other side effect of this is that Bitcoin, unlike all the other monetary systems, fiat currency monetary systems, is not controlled by a government or a bank. So if for example, China wants to buy something from a country that it's got to buy it, but it doesn't really want to trade with that company, but they need to have a mechanism of exchange which is acceptable to both. Bitcoin provides that mechanism because it's independent. It's not, I'm favoring one country or another based on the currency that's being used. So as a medium of exchange, it's incredibly important. But the most important thing is that if you have that money, you're not at the mercy of the country that you live in. You're at the mercy of how they allow you to trade in it, but you can always put in a VPN and trade from somewhere else, or move, if you choose. But basically, it gives you a way to have your own money, look after your own money, and spend your own money and control it without interference. So, we mentioned before we came on about CBDC, central bank digital currency, where the government will essentially control a wallet with electronic money, and they will know everything about what's going on with your bank account and where you're spending and what you're doing, etc. They report that they won't look.
Like we made a whole video on this. They said they're not going to be programming anything.
Yeah. So it's like we have the power to look at everything and control the economy and manage people's spending, but we're not going to do it. We're not going to look.
We are very good. We're going to be looking after you.
And all I tell people is, tell me the time when the government did something which was in your favour. And the answer is never. So I don't think that you can trust or believe them. And I think, the trust has gone, that the government to do anything like keep us safe and keep our money safe, and they're not going to look at what we're doing. Like, if you want to believe that story, then good luck. I don't subscribe to it, but that's why I have some Bitcoin is because like it's outside the reach of those buggers to take it off.
And this reminds me of a very common line that people usually say when it comes to Bitcoin. Oh, it's what criminals trade in.
No. Criminals trade in fiat currency, dollars,
in cash,
pounds, cash. Yeah, villains will trade in cash for the simple reason it's undetectable, untraceable, right? Bitcoin's not untraceable. Right? Behind all of these cryptocurrencies is a thing called blockchain, and when a transaction takes place, it's recorded in a public ledger. It's like it's the worst thing a criminal could do is transact in Bitcoin because they're going to be found. It's like you just wouldn't do it. You'd stick with the cash. That's why they're trying to get rid of cash and bring in digital wallets, because that covers off the cash, and then they know what you're doing, right? But Bitcoin's outside of that system, right? And of course, as a mechanism for storing a load of money, which if they don't is going to go down the toilet because it's going to be inflated away and people are going to lose everything. You've got to give them a chance to put it into something where they can keep the value of that asset. And there's not enough gold. Gold would be like silly money an ounce. I mean, we're talking 100,000 if all of that 400 trillion had to be in gold. Can you imagine how much an ounce of gold would cost? It would be 1,000 times what it is now, and at the current price is nearly 2,000. So that would be, like, I don't know, a lot of money.
Yeah. So another thing that people say is, oh, but I have it in my hand when I buy gold and silver. It's in my hand. I can hold it. I can touch it. I can put it in my house, and I can see it, and I know it's there.
Yeah,
But
and so
then,
does a robber.
and actually, it's very easy for we hear all the time about, I'm in a neighborhood watch kind of group, and they're constantly telling me how this house got robbed and the gold was stolen and some jewelry disappeared and whatnot. So this is what the problem with we having these physical coins of silver, because that's how it comes into the shape of coins. I think gold as well. Because for regular people like you and I who don't have the big bars, we can't buy and stack gold bars anywhere. That's a lot of money to invest in one of those. Still, it comes in coins, but it still needs to be put away somewhere and
Yeah, I
hidden.
mean, like the thing about gold is per coin, it's worth a lot more money. So if you were going away to a different country and you need to take $10,000 with you, you'd take 5 coins.
One coin.
5 coins. Like that will do the job. If you wanted to take silver, you'd have to take 500 coins. Like you have to take a lot more coins. It'd be a lot more weighty. So gold is, if you're trying to go across countries, like across borders, then gold would be a more preferable mechanism. But with Bitcoin, I just take my phone, which I'm going to be using for other things anyway. I just, for boarding the plane, whatever, and it's stored on there. Like that's it. It's there.
And the only thing you need to remember with Bitcoin is your password and making sure you don't lose your phone. But you can always, disable those. There are security options on that.
Yeah, you don't need that. Doesn't even matter as long as you can re-register the thing and you've got your keys and you can load them up again. Then you're in business. So yeah, I mean, it's like there are so many attractions to it, and yes, it is volatile. But look, God, like beginning of this century, do you know how much an ounce of silver was?
No. How much?
$4. $4.
Oh.
So and now it's $23, right? It's probably, if you take from then to now and all the crashing that's gone on, silver has done as well, has done better than all the equities. It's 4x'd, 5x'd, maybe even close to 6x'd. And
It's got people's trust in it. That's what it is. People trust it, and people know that it's very useful, and
it's like it's
therefore they
money. You
can
can take it
invest
down
their
the
money in
road,
it.
and you can take it into a like one of these exchange shops, and they'll weigh it up and they'll give you cash for it. It's money.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not money that will get inflated away, because if it was $100 now and there was twice as much dollars in the market, that means your $100 would be worth $50, which means you'd need $200 to get your $100, if you like, because it's now half as much. Silver would be worth $200. So the ounce of silver hasn't changed. It's just how many dollars you receive for it has gone up with inflation.
Mm-hmm. And printing
Whereas,
money, and they're printing money, right? So we
yes,
were going to also mention about how to buy it, but maybe we do another video on that because it's getting longer. The one thing that I sometimes think about is this: what if there was no electricity? We couldn't go on the internet. So that's the one thing that is like, when I have my silver and gold, I know it's over there in my house, on the shelf, in this cupboard, in this jar, under the mattress, wherever. But if I can't go on the internet because there's no power.
well, nobody's going to be doing anything, are they? Like at the end of the day, the government has moved all their stuff to online. The central banking digital currency, that's going to be electronic, isn't it? So that's going to be electronic. And how long is the absence of electricity going to be here? Because we're not going to have any food in the freezer. We're not going to be able to have any trains or transport anything. Nothing would work. So yeah, sure, it would be hard, but just call it forced saving. Because while it's there, it's just not being touched. So
Until the
like
power is back on.
their power's restored, but no, what I'm basically saying is that the biggest scam is fiat currency, the stuff we have in our wallets and our handbags. That's the worst Ponzi scheme ever. The dollar is worth 1% of what it was in 1900. 1% of that is being inflated away, and what's happening is that your wealth, any money you've got in the bank, any money you've got anywhere in a pension scheme, is just being inflated away. Like I remember when my dad was getting his pension checks, it was like, oh, I'm getting my pension next week, like £90. What would £90 get you today? A meal in a restaurant, that's it, £90 gone. That's the whole month's paid, like pension. Right, and now people are saying, well, I'll get my pension next week, 1,500. Right, well, that's commensurate with today's prices, right? But if your pension is away there, been filed away, and you're now expecting your pension, and the price of everything has tripled or quadrupled, your pension is worth a quarter of what it was when it went in there. So with all those promises of, you're going to be getting this every month and that every month, you look at those numbers and you say, how can I live on that? But if you put it in Bitcoin, which is just going to keep pace with inflation and then some, or you put it into gold and silver, which doesn't get inflated away because it's real money, then you're protecting yourself. But you have to. I'm no financial advisor. I'm just saying that you need to look at these things and take a bit of a rain check and say, am I putting all in my eggs in one basket, or have I spread this around a bit so that,
or am I too gullible, believing what the government's saying, or believing into a currency that might not exist in a few months' time?
well, no, I'm going to tell you something now. Why would the government like Bitcoin? people get out of control, out of their control. They're able to do what they want. It's like it's all the things they don't want you to be doing. So how can they have a positive word for Bitcoin? How can they?
Yeah.
I just say to you, there's no
This is
positive
probably
word.
the best thing that sums it all up.
Yeah,
Why
they're
would
not
the government want you to invest in Bitcoin when it's against everything they stand for?
exactly, and you know, like and you know, you need to look at your own scenario and make choices which are right for you. And people will say to you, "Oh, Bitcoin's a scam," but you are and you get a financial advisor in front of you, not all of them, I'm sure, but a good number of them, and you ask them about crypto. They say, "Oh, I don't want to invest in that; it's very risky," and they know nothing about this except what they've read in the newspapers or the mandate that comes from their bosses who are tied to the banking system and the government, who are telling you exactly what they want you to carry on doing with no regard for your interest at all. And that, I think, is dishonorable. And
Yeah,
I think,
they're just keeping their interests and don't care about anybody else.
yeah, you go down with the ship as well.
They go
You
down,
know,
but so do you. Yeah.
so do you. Get a life raft and get going. Got some paddles around here somewhere.
Right. Have we covered enough? I think, Chris.
Yeah, that's enough.
Maybe
It's
that's
only
enough.
supposed to be a little bit of an overview. We went into
Yeah.
details.
So I hope you have got a little bit of clarity around the topic of what Bitcoin is and why it is not another money scam, but it's a good place to maybe get yourself more educated about. Good place to start considering the
Well,
future,
we
what the
can do it
future
just.
holds for you.
We can do another one. Like, how do you get hold of this? How do you get
Yeah,
hold of
how would you
Bitcoin?
actually do it? Well, where do you go? What do you buy? How do you buy it? And because that's a very, very well, it's not hard, but it's got things that people need to know. It involves some education, like with everything. So, if you guys like what you just heard, well, here's an invitation. Subscribe, click the bell to be notified about the next video we release. Share it with your friends if you found it useful. Maybe you know somebody who is also confused about Bitcoin and they might want to learn a little bit more. So share it with your friends, put it on Facebook, put it in your other social media channels. We want to spread the word and we want to awaken happiness in whatever form it is for you. So thank you for watching and see you on another episode. Thank you, Chris, for sharing your beautiful knowledge with us.
Do what I can. Bye now.
Bye.
You want to?